We're going to talk in this video about best practice with CCL and spreadsheets in particular. This would also apply to things like SCP. Basically in OSLO you can run into some problems if you try to run some CCLs or mini CCLs with the spreadsheets open. Often users have asked us if they can have something that closes the spreadsheets when things start. And it's very difficult internally in the program for us to actually make that happen due to the architecture and how there are some error handling factors that come into play. You don't need to know that as a customer. It's just best to kind of see some ways to deal with this. So first of all, I've got just a lens open here. We're going to show just a few different kinds of problems we can run into. This is by no means a complete list. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to have the main lens spreadsheet editor open here. And we're just going to go ahead and run this spreadsheet, and I've called it Spreadsheet Confused command. And that's because we are going to be confused after I run it. So we run this, and let's say whoever you're working with, your partners or whoever's working with this, they didn't write this CCL, and then they had this spreadsheet open, and they go to actually X out and they say, wait, what actually changed? So they don't really know what changed. If they run it with it closed, they don't ever end up in this kind of position where they're really unsure. That was one of the first reasons why I got in the habit of not running with spreadsheets open. Okay, so we're going to undo those changes, and now we're going to go back again. So the second thing is let's actually now run. I'd like to run it with the Wavelength spreadsheet editor open, so I'm going to do WSE to get to that. We also have a tip video that just mentions this at very high level. This is the much deeper dive into this topic. So let's go now and let's run just this spreadsheet variable with the Wavelength spreadsheet open. So I run this, and now we're really confused because if I try to X out of this, it says undo all changes. Well, I have no idea what I changed. All I had was the Wavelength spreadsheet editor open. I didn't have the surface data spreadsheet open. Well, there's a hierarchy to these things, and it turns out the Wavelength spreadsheet editor is, in a sense, below the hierarchy and a lower point in the hierarchy than the surface data spreadsheet. So in this case, it's even worse because we changed something in the surface data spreadsheet, but you could actually cancel it out with the Wavelength spreadsheet editor. Don't get intimidated by this. We have a whole video on managing the spreadsheets. You do get used to using them, and there are some real advantages to this Xing out and clicking yes to accept changes, the undo method that we have in the program. So here's another one, and I guess I'll run this one. Let's say that inside of a CCL, I go ahead and I open the spreadsheet. Now, if I wanted to close it at some other point, I can't, because we don't have the ability, due to all the error handling and possible conflicts that we can run into, to close the spreadsheets. So another thing that I'm in the habit of doing, and I've been using OSLO for over 25 years now, is I really try to keep spreadsheets closed when I start CCLs, and I don't open them. So I have not found a case where I haven't been able to work around not having a spreadsheet open. Many of the commands that you use to alter data in the spreadsheets can be accessed in a different way within CCL. So that's for the developer side of it. If you're developing CCLs, if you are a user, unless you know you're supposed to have a spreadsheet open, just have them closed. Okay, so the next one is a spreadsheet conflict. This is kind of a pretty straightforward one. So obviously I have all these CCLs saved in my directory, and I've already compiled it. So we go to run this, and it says, uh-oh, it can't do that. Well, why can't it do it? Because I already had the spreadsheet open, and I just told it within a CCL to open that. So that's a clear conflict, a clear problem. Now, the last one is something that you can use in order to, for certain spreadsheets, to see if they're open when somebody tries to run it. So if you want them to not have them open, and you can't control all the people who are using your CCLs, you're in a pretty large organization or something like that, there are some ways, like we show in our quick tip video on this with the field point spreadsheet editor. It turns out that if I go to the OSLO help and I look at spreadsheet and I go to the CCL global data, I like doing it this way because this will tell me where the spreadsheet is within the help system. And here you can see this surface spreadsheet open, and it's true if the surface data spreadsheet is open. Well, that's kind of handy. So here I've written a little program where what I want to do is I want to basically pause the CCL and mention to the users to please close and rerun with the spreadsheets closed. Now, I didn't stop the program in this case. There are some other commands in CCL that you could do to make it stop running that CCL. In this case, I give the user an option, and I'll show how that can backfire soon too. But this is one way that you can work if you're developing CCLs to keep users from running into problems. So here, if I run this, now it says the spreadsheet's open, cancel, and rerun with spreadsheets closed. So I can cancel this. I can rerun this little program now with the spreadsheets closed, and it just opened the spreadsheet that ran just fine. Now, while it's open, if I try the same thing, and let's say I decide I'm going to be intelligent about this and ignore the little warning message in this case, or I didn't read it carefully, or these sorts of things can happen. Let's just say we hit OK, then it gives me the same error message as before. So there's some ways for developers to work around this with some of these variables that we have as flags to say whether the spreadsheets are open or not. And generally, the best practice is to design things so that the spreadsheets are closed and stay closed. If you do have, for some reason, a need to open spreadsheets, just be aware that because of the error handling in the program, we don't have a way to close those spreadsheets without creating a lot of problems. We really require that user interaction to do it.